really, really honing in on specific areas of support that might fit within the braid mission. So um, Elizabeth is happy to come join us for a meeting. So it sounds like she might be coming for the May meeting, but she specifically said uh, she'd be happy to help walk us through sort of what that leadership advocacy looks like in terms of the letter that some of you, Jill, I know you're taking the lead on that, we're drafting, and help walk us through like how we would do that appropriately, going through the right channels, how to phrase things. So she'll be helping us with that. And then the other thing is I did submit a formal request to have this consortium be considered part of the UC Braid's like official program, which means we could get some funding. And so some other things that I requested with Elizabeth's support was potentially some small time for a research for what I'm calling a resources administrator, but somebody to help schedule the meetings and coordinate things. We had talked about having an in-person retreat or get together. Sounds like Braid is doing something similar in the fall at Irvine. And so they recommended that maybe we could just join that effort because that makes it a lot more streamlined for us and what we want to do. And then the last thing was to help us explore the website development. So Jill's put together some really great resources, but we're having access issues. And so Elizabeth had suggested we might be able to use Braid's website platform to actually build what we need. And then, maybe eventually port it over to, something more independent. So those are sort of the 4 areas of support that she had recommended. So that's what I've submitted and just waiting to hear back from the UC Braid leadership team that it was formally adopted, because then that'll give us some funding to actually do those projects. So that's where we're at.
Cool, thanks, Robin. I think it'd be really, really cool if we could do an in-person meeting. Even if it's not just 100% talking about training grants, but if we can have a spin-off, I guess you could say, from the UC Braid, that would be really, really cool, I think.
Yeah, maybe next time we could do a survey and hear back from everybody here what topics they'd like to hear about or join if we want to, what kinds of events, speakers, et cetera, that we might, that'd be really nice to hear what everybody's really interested in.
Yeah, I agree. Speaking of topics, so you said in May you have a speaker from UC Braid, so I'll come up with a speaker or some sort of presentation for next month, relevant based on what we're talking about. So, okay, so I think we'll go ahead and get into I don't know bios on each of them, but Kristen Asher from UC Davis, Marguerite Klum from Klum from UC Irvine.
You had it right the first time. It's Klum.
I shouldn't have second-guessed myself, huh? And then Rachel Reeves from UC Davis. So I'll go ahead and let you guys, if you guys want to, if you have a PowerPoint, you want to share. And I did hit record finally a little bit late, but better late than never, I guess, right?
I'm happy to go first if nobody else wants to.
Oh, please, Marguerite, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So,
don't fight over it now.
I'm just gonna share my screen, make sure that it's in.
And Marguerite, can we hear a little bit of your background? And
yes, yeah, of course. I wasn't gonna just jump into what I have written down. Yeah, for sure. Hi, my name's Marguerite Klum. I'm from University of California at Irvine. I work for our CTSA, so the Institute for Clinical and Translational Science. So we're funded by a big UL1 grant, and then I also help to manage our TL1, which currently funds postdocs, and our KL2 program, which funds early career faculty. And I've been in this role at UCI since 2017. And I've been helping to administer the T32 PI Council since probably 2018 when I was brought in to help with this group. The PI Council was established by Dr. Vince Caiozzo. I just want to give him a big acknowledgement. When I chatted with him about giving this presentation, he gave me a great list of the accomplishments of this group. So I just want to thank him profusely. We work very closely together. He previously ran a T32, I think, for several years before he took over the TL1 and the KL2 program. So he has a great experience in running these types of programs. He's been a faculty member here at UCI for many years. So I just want to thank him so much. So when we chatted, and I think some of this information was kind of talked about at our last meeting. But this council was established in 2016 by Dr. Vince Caiozzo. Really the goal of it is to share different training that we're doing on campus. So I think this group was very slow to start, as Jurga mentioned previously, and I think it took a lot of finessing and just patience to get everybody together, but it seems like we've got a great momentum. And I looked at the list before coming on this meeting, and currently we have 70 people. That includes faculty and staff across our campus who are part of this consortium. So really, we've transitioned from an individual T32 cottage enterprise into institutional enterprise, whereby there's synergy across the entire T32 network on campus. So basically all of the training programs are talking to each other. We have a singular meeting that brings together PIs, key administrators. That includes the Vice Chancellor for Research, also our Vice Provost for Graduate Education, and the Dean. It's one role, and she's also the Dean for Graduate Education. They don't attend every single meeting. If there's something important to discuss, we do invite them to attend. I think part of this group has really advocacy led to the development of an enhanced process and streamlined approach for providing key data required for T32 applications. That's something that's handled by Dr. Jurgelem. I'm gonna mess up your last name. Dr. Jurgelem Meharena, and she is so fantastic to work with. And I also think that part of this group really helped to establish the role of the Senior Training Grants Director position, which Jurga holds currently, and she's the founding director. And another accomplishment of this group is it serves as a key forum for discussions relating to the impact of the UC contract that recently affected graduate students and postdocs. I think during each one of our recent meetings, this has been a topic of conversation and just learning how it's really affecting the different programs on campus. The T32 Council has also played a key role in providing campus-wide mentor training for graduate students and postdoctoral fellows. It also led to an NIH administrative supplement awarded to one of the training programs on our campus. The council also serves as a central forum for sharing best practices of mentored career development programs. That includes grant development, tracking and evaluation, diversity, recruitment and retention practices, different training opportunities, including writing workshops, training awards, etc., and the coordination of activities related to responsible conduct of research and rigor and reproducibility. I just wanted to touch briefly on some of our future goals. Vince and I are always in conversation about this. I think one goal that we have is to advocate for institutional support or a position to help track the graduates of these programs. That's a huge burden on the administrators of these types of programs. That would be an amazing accomplishment. And then also maybe just providing some more administrative support for the training grants. And I think that's all I had. Vince, was there anything you wanted to add?
The only thing I'll add is that we're lucky because we have Jurga here on the call, and also we have the Associate Dean for Graduate Studies in the School of Biological Sciences, Craig Walsh, who's been a great partner and has been involved in our meetings, over the course of the last couple of years. Before that, we had Mike Mulligan from the School of Biological Sciences. So we've got a nice representation of critical administrators. And as Marguerite said, we typically have a large number of the T32 PIs that attend, along with staff from the various administrative offices across the campus. So overall, it's a great working group, and our goal is simply to help promote career development throughout the campus.
Robin, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, you had mentioned that one of the things you're looking at is trying to get funding for an administrator for tracking the trainees. Did I hear that right?
Yes.
Okay. Have you estimated like what that looks? Is that like a full FTE to you to have somebody just purely dedicated to that, or is it just somebody can do it part-time? Is it like something you think a student assistant could do? I don't know if you've thought about like what type of person you would need to do that job.
Yeah, that's a really great question. We haven't really looked that closely at those details. I think in my mind, it would be a staff person, one person dedicated to this, but maybe even.
And they would be supporting all the T32s on campus.
Right, exactly.
Okay. And then I know you said T32s, but does that include your CTSA training awards as well?
Yes, that would totally include the CTSA training awards. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. Yes, Nova?
And the one thing I'd just like to add is that in terms of tracking and evaluation, if you take a look at the announcements coming out of NIH, that's a fundamental issue that's actually listed in the announcements. And so the question is, as a individual PI, or maybe you have an MPI team, how do you actually satisfy the tracking and evaluation that NIH expects? And of course, you could say there's a broad spectrum of what that actually entails. But at the end of the day, what we'd like to be able to do is offer the best tracking and evaluation program to all of our T32 programs, so that there's kind of a common set of tracking and evaluation metrics, and that everybody's being basically provided with, phenomenal administrative support. I'll mention that back probably around 2018 or so, we had a presentation from the folks at UCSF and how they track and evaluate their programs and the type of administrative support that they provide. And of course, UCSF is really at the top of the pyramid, but it provided a real nice insight in terms of how they run their program. And they do have a institutional office that basically helps in all these. And ultimately, I think that should be the goals of all of our institutions, is to provide that type of support.
Yeah, great input. Hi, Nova.
Oh, yeah, go
Hi,
ahead.
so I had a question about numbers. So you're thinking about hiring someone to track for all these T32s, how many, or training grants, how many training grants, and do you have an idea of how many postdocs, pre-docs that supports? Because that makes a big difference into how much help you need for that. Because if it's 4 training grants versus 50, that's a big difference. And if it's only 20 trainees versus and you have to track years back, especially if you're doing a renewal. So I'm thinking, have you looked at the numbers as how many people are you going to need to track, and how far back, and are you thinking, and how many training grants is that?
That is a very good point. So currently here at UCI, we have 17 training grants. I'm not sure the number of graduates that each program has. That would be an interesting number to collect. I think for us, I don't know off the top of my head, for our TL1 and our KL2 program, how many we have. I think maybe 20 for our KL2, and for our TL1, maybe 30 graduates. I have to double check. So that's a very good point. We haven't not taken that into consideration.
I mean,
I
for the
can-
progress reports, it's only, you know, the current people, but for renewals or resubmissions, things like that, you know, you can, you might have to track, you know, 5 years back or something to get all that information, unless somebody's doing it yearly, like checking with all those past people yearly. But that can add up to a lot of time if, you know, there's a lot.
It's-
And if you're saying
It's
there's
not
like
even
20
only
in
5
one,
years. It's not only even 5 years, it's 15 years.
well, depending
So-
on the grant, yes, but depends
Yeah.
on the grant.
Currently
true,
it's
but-
10. It's moving up to 15.
Right, but I mean,
It is
yeah.
already 15, but I can help out there. So we are collecting the table 8A for all the training grants. So in the table 8A, we have like every renewal, you have the 5-year data. So for some of them, we have very old training grants that have like up to 15 years. So we are already collecting the table 8As. That way, this is just like something that we are collecting. So once we have something, some kind of mechanism to help out with the tracking, so we kind of have the data. Off the top of my head, I cannot say how many students we have, how many trainees, but we have that data.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if you want to hire someone, you have to have an idea of how much time that it's going to take them to collect that data based on how many trainees there are or how many past trainees.
Right, yeah, so that's what I'm saying. When you collect all the table 8As for all the training grants, at least we are halfway, just finding out like how many people we have.
Somebody
Yeah,
referred to the UCSF, I think it was Vince. And I know I had met with the person that originally started it, I think, but I think she's gone. Halima is gone now, but I thought she told me that they just had, like, for tracking all these trainees, they just hired like student workers, and then they would just power through the list. So, you know, I don't know. You know, I don't remember the specifics on that though, but yeah, I think that it's a good question, and something actually at UCSD we would like to do the flight tracker too. We've talked to Robin at UCLA. That's another thing that I'm trying to get to and look into.
Flight Tracker is a great option because not only will it track your trainees, but it will provide you with a lot of data for renewal. It also helps with your data tables. So, and and also Flight Tracker is like a consortium. So it's a group, they meet on a monthly basis. He's always taking input. The most recent input that we've given him is that we would like a T to K conversion calculator. And so he's working on that. I don't know when that will be up and running, but I'll turn it over to Vince. He has his hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say that while we do have this tracking that we have to perform, something that I believe is just as important is actually the evaluation component. So how are we monitoring the quality of the mentoring that our trainees receive? How are the mentors perceiving their capacity to provide mentoring, and how do they evaluate their trainees? So there's a lot of kind of satisfaction type of data that were required, especially within the CTSA network. And I would say that no matter what type of a training mechanism you're submitting to NIH, it always helps to have data that reflects the quality of the mentoring, not only from the mentee's perspective, but also from the mentor's perspective. So tracking and evaluation is a big thing. We've got to be able to follow our trainees and figure out what's happening with them. But on top of that, we also need to provide some data that demonstrates the quality of our programs. And the place where this shows up most importantly is what appears in either a de novo application or a renewal of some type, because there you've got to convince the reviewers in the study section that you know, you've got a very robust evaluation program in place.
And I'll just address Rachel's question in the chat. She's asking, could you say more about the T32 Council's role in the mentoring supplement? And yes, so we had collaborated with Harinder Singh, who was previously at GPS STEM, working with Dr. Fruman, and we had put together, I think it was a 7-week mentoring course based on the SIMMER curriculum. And so we had piloted that, I think it was 2021 or so. I can't remember off the top of my head. So one of our training grants used our curriculum and wrote about it in an administrative supplement to his T32 and received it. So he had some of his faculty attend some of the workshops that we had organized.
So there was a workshop series on mentoring that belonged to the T32 Council that ended up in someone's proposal.
Yes.
Okay, so that's great. Thank you. So mentoring is a particular strength of or something that you've taken some ownership of as a topic for the council.
Yes.
A special area of interest. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's, to be precise, the council kind of reviewed the idea and approved it, but it was ICTS, our Vince, and our CTSA that organized and advertised. The council is more of this a think tank than an implementer, other than Marguerite, who sends out emails.
Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying, Dr. Fruman.
So I have a kind of a simplistic question, but how many people did you say are involved in your T32 council? How many?
We have a list of 70 people.
How do you get 70 people involved? Because I think that's my big issue at UCSD. Because I've tried, and you occasionally get a PI that's really interested, and then all of a sudden he submits his renewal and he doesn't want to hear from you for 4 years. You know what I mean?
That's a good question. I think keeping them engaged.
Shall I say something?
Yes, please.
So before Vince, because Vince will chime in, but when we first started this, it was an uphill battle. It didn't start this way. And thanks to people that were very involved, but Vince was on top of it. And then it just like when we very first started, like the very first couple of years, maybe, it was but the both of us just like bugging everyone, just like, can you come for this meeting? So it didn't start this way. So, but it's just all on Vince and all the people like David, and just like they never missed a meeting once we started. So yeah, all the credit to them.
And I just want to add, luckily, we do have Jurga over in the graduate division office. So that provides a key contact for us into grad division. And also, Craig Walsh is on the call here today. And as I mentioned earlier, Craig's our associate dean for graduate education in the School of Biological Sciences. And, we've had great input from our administrators across campus, along with the individual PIs. David has played a key role. Not only does he lead a T32, but he established the so-called BEST program. Now it's called GPS STEM within the School of Biological Sciences. So there's a lot of great collaboration across the campus, and luckily our administrators buy into that. So it didn't happen overnight, but it has evolved to where it is now, and we hope to go way beyond where we're currently at. We just had a fantastic graduate education forum that Craig put on that was a collaboration between the School of Biological Sciences and the School of Medicine. And from that, what we're hoping is that we can eventually grow that into a day or maybe a week committed to career development. And Craig, I don't know if you want to talk more about that, but the meeting overall was incredibly well organized and really touched on a lot of important issues.
Yeah, thanks, Vince. I mean, for UCI's history, almost 60 years, we'd never once had a day set aside to talk about graduate education in our schools, and we felt it was really important to do that. and really kind of figure out what the priorities are moving forward. And certainly one of the major priorities is related to training grants. And so, you know, that's why I'm here today. I really want to hear some of what, you know, what your thinking is, and trying to put forward some best practices.
So I just want to follow up on Jill's question. One thing I've noticed is that when a new faculty group gets a new T32, they come to this, and whenever you get a T32, whether it's a new or renewal, you're like, okay, now we have 5 years till the next renewal. What do we do? We proposed a bunch of stuff. What are we actually going to do? And you find out very quickly from this group that there's a lot you can learn from them. So I think that, and those people come and then they keep coming as long as they have time, and everybody's busy. But the fact that people come and then they come back tells me that we keep the agendas focused, we don't ramble, and we talk about items that are of interest to everybody. And Vince keeps things rolling along and tries to get through the agenda. So with help from Marguerite. So it's just, we've all been in interminable faculty meetings, and I won't belabor the point just to keep this one rolling, but I think it's the quality of the leadership and the importance of the topics.
And I'll chime in with one other thing. We keep it positive. I mean, you know, you can get into meetings and complain and things go downhill, but we try to keep it positive. Yes.
Rob,
Sorry. Yes. So in terms of setting that agenda, like who makes the decision of what topics to put on? Because it sounds like people are very invested in coming back over and over again. So how do you determine what's the like hot topic of the moment to put your discussion around?
Vince and I will set the agenda probably, you know, a few days in advance. Just make sure that we have things that need to be addressed. And then also sometimes if we have a short agenda, we'll reach out to the group and ask if there are things that they want to discuss. Well,
and I'll just add that we're talking to a lot of folks across campus continuously, and so out of that comes a variety of topics. You know, Jurga basically provides us a report at each of our meetings to kind of keep us up to date in terms of where things stand. Craig and I met after the graduate education forum, and we identified important topics. David was part of a group that was meeting. So it's just that we're constantly kind of stirring the pot and talking to folks and finding out what are the hot button issues. And clearly one of them this past year was the whole UC contract negotiation. Craig knows a lot more about that than I do, but we pivoted immediately to get our key administrators for personnel that were there at a meeting, giving basically an overview of what they thought was going to happen. We had Jillian Hayes, who leads the graduate division office. She came and she's provided a lot of good input to us. And I think, as I mentioned before, one of the shocking things that I learned actually prior to the settlement is that there was only one faculty member from the entire UC system that sat on the negotiating team for the University of California with the union, which, you know, to be honest, I think it's a sad commentary, and we need to have greater representation on these types of bodies when we're negotiating on behalf of not only the T32 programs, but also for what potentially is best for the graduate students and the postdocs.
Wow, thank you. I still can't believe only one faculty member. That's crazy. But I'm not surprised. Kristen, is it Kirsten? Kirsten. Can you you're from UC Davis. Can you give us like your version of what your T32 council looks like?
Absolutely. Thanks, Jill. So this is going to be kind of an echo of what Marguerite presented. By the way, I'm the administrative manager at the Cancer Center for the Office of Education, Training, and Career Development. And on the call today is also Rachel Reeves and Desiree Segali, who are also with UC Davis and heavily involved in this. Our T32 Council was formed in late 2021. So we are again quite a bit younger than the program at Irvine, but have largely the same story and some of the same successes. Figure out why it's not advancing. There we go. So currently our T32 Council has 53 members, and the membership body is made up of current T32 PIs, but also some former T32 PIs, their program coordinators, and then faculty who are interested, who are thinking about developing a T32. The group is co-sponsored by the Cancer Center and the CTSC or our CTSA's directors. It's not on the slide, and it should be. So while these two directors sponsor the council, it is the directors for education, training, and career development at the Cancer Center and at the CTSC that chair the council. It is staffed by myself, Rachel, Desiree, and some other folks that again are pulled from both the Cancer Center and the CTSA. And our group meets twice a year, and we have working groups as well, which I'll get into a little bit of that detail. But you can see there on the side of the slide the mandates or the activities that the group is really involved in, and first and foremost, it's to support each other. Pardon me. And then to support the development of new T32s, advise each other, and then leverage resources across all of the training programs. A big one is advocating for the needs of the T32s. And then we outcome uniformity. We've got a lot of work around that area. One thing that may be different, maybe not, from Irvine, is that we have these working groups that are formed by subsets of council membership. And so we've got a working group that is really looking at funding T32s, what I would say, funding them properly or funding them fully under the new contract, as well as not just about the new contract, but about other gaps as well. Operational efficiencies is a second working group, and this is the group that is currently evaluating Flight Tracker, Moniker, OrcID, and there's one other app that may or may not help with tracking trainee data. So they're looking at those applications and seeing what they can do for us. There is a third working group that's looking at how to share curriculum across T32s, as well as career readiness resources across T32s. Responsible conduct of research is a big focus of that group. And then desk aids for coordinators. There's a working group that is formed that is the membership of the working group is only coordinators, and they are feeling very siloed in their work. And so they're and desk aids kind of a generic term, but really they're trying to figure out ways that they can standardize their work and then share information across the T32s. The council is very big on supporting first-time T32 PIs at Davis. Right now we have 18 T32s, if I'm not mistaken. And there are at least 3 that are cancer relevant, and they're probably likely more, but 3 that I know of, because I'm at the cancer center, that are going in, and the council's really been supporting those new PIs. And then just to speak to the growth, we started the council in November of 2021, and it grew very quickly. And I think in large part that growth, somebody was asking earlier about how did Irvine get 70 people on the bench? And at Davis, what really helped grow this group was we had the sponsorship at that senior level by the 2 center directors, and then our 2 chairs, again, the education directors from both the Cancer Center and the CTSC, really, they just had great relationships with everybody across the health system campus and the main campus, and really rallied people with a very, and again, I'm going to echo Marguerite again, just with a really positive message about that this group was going to facilitate change, and this group was really going to support. So that helped our growth. I want to, oh, there's a question in the chat. Oh, thank you, Rachel. Actually, I was going to kick it over to you, Rachel, if there's anything that you wanted to add.
I think it was also a bit of a perfect storm situation, right, with our timing, because Dr. Fred Myers had been trying for a while to get this started, because it feels like now that we're doing it, it feels self-apparent that it was a good idea. But it did take a few tries to get it started. And I think that we started meeting around the time that people were first getting a hold of the new contracts, and the new contract for the first time included trainees just under their new terms. And so I think that we provided a service in getting a hold of the contracts and finding the relevant language for those people. We provided a service in convening the conversations and bringing the relevant parties into the room. So we've hosted the Dean of Graduate Studies for conversations about the perpetual concerns of T32 PIs, but also pressing questions about funding under the new contracts. We've brought in leadership from our Office of Research to talk about what help is available for people who are putting in T32 applications. Where are the gaps? I mean, we've had a number of really helpful I think that one of the things that Kirsten said that I want to emphasize is the work that is done outside of the council is one of the big reasons that people keep coming back. Because we've done a lot of legwork to communicate with the Office of Research about their matching funds process not really being appropriate for a T32 PI in terms of how the campus was going to get matching funds to supplement to bring us up to the new contract. Just the process of applying for those didn't fit very well with the way that these programs operate. And so we were able to, as a council, get a picture of what might be a more efficient system. And there wasn't total agreement. I don't know the consensus among 18 PIs is going to happen. But I think it was a helpful place to have the conversation. And the prospect of resources in common, I think, is also just really attractive to people who want to do it right and don't have the resources or the interest to rebuild the wheel. Yurga,
did you have a question?
Yes, I have a quick question. So you said you guys meet every 6 months, is that correct? Or
The full
Uh,
council meets every 6 months, the working groups, more often.
okay, so who takes care of the new PIs when they are preparing the training grants for the new PIs? Is it just like, does everybody sit in one room and then just brainstorm with the new PIs, or is it is it a working group?
It's an ad hoc working group for those cases, and it will depend almost entirely on what that new PI needs. So if they're, they might be struggling with the evaluation section or the recruitment section. And so a group will form around that.
So for resubmissions or only new ones?
Both, actually.
Okay.
Kirsten, how many working groups do you actually have?
There are 4 at this point.
Okay. And
Yeah.
they meet, how often do they meet?
It's not a set schedule because the project, depending on the project and its life cycle, so they meet as needed, as the project demands.
Okay, no, I was just kind of curious. Vince, you had your hand up. Did you have a question or comment?
Well, I was just going to add that, from my perspective, having programs like this, I'm talking about T32 PI councils or whatever you want to call them. I think from a PI's perspective, they're important because you can basically highlight the fact that you have a council like this on your campus. From the grants that I've reviewed over many, many years related to these training programs, it's pretty rare for there to actually be a campus-wide program. So kudos to Davis and to anybody else that's got that. Obviously, each of your institutions have been successful, but I think that having something like this is just one of those instances where it shows extra care in terms of, or diligency in terms of what you're proposing to do as part of the training program. So it's not a core component of the review process, but it just demonstrates that there's an added level of attention to the importance of career development at a given institution.
And I think the engagement that we've received from campus leadership like speaks to that as well. It feels like it's nice for them to have someone to talk to about these things.
Yeah, especially for the new PIs, somewhere to go to and just finding someone to talk to, because you get lost very easily when you start with the training grants.
Yeah, I'm going through that exact scenario for the May 25th deadline. I have a new PI that wants to submit. And so I referred them directly to another couple PIs that have also submitted to that institute, just like get around, get some ideas and stuff. But having a council, this is like very inspiring for me because I really like to do this at UCSD. We have a lot of great minds we could come together, which I think a council would be very, it could, if we could get it off the ground, I think it would be very beneficial to everybody.
Mostly I work with the new PIs, so maybe Vince, I'm going to just hand them to you from now on.
The other thing that I do want to say is that, when you have a council, when you have this body of key faculty and administrators of that group, it's a lot more difficult for our higher level administrators to kind of dismiss the importance of an individual program. So to me, that's the other aspect to having a PI council, is that you've got this large body of faculty that are speaking on behalf of graduate students and postdocs in their futures. That's a tough thing for an administrator to basically avoid. And so there's I think there's an added component in terms of the degree to which we're speaking when we talk as a council versus just an individual PI.
I'll also say kind of along those lines that having these working groups has been just wonderful to create space for, because we have PIs and faculty, but we also have staff that are involved, administrative staff that are involved in these working groups. And we make sure to keep it just to that for these working groups and not invite, like higher level administration and leaders into it. So it is this safe space that it doesn't become this like bickering and complaining. It becomes, there is some complaining and I'm dealing with this issue, but then we put things to action and things get done. So I just really want to speak to having these working groups because it really creates this space to really create actionable items and move things forward.
And I'd like to chime in just as a participant of one of those working groups that Kirsten is just such a key component, just such a foundational part of that success. And I think that's something that I've heard kind of mirrored across this. But of course, as a fellow UC Davis affiliate in this group, I'd love to sing her praises momentarily, but just acknowledge that a part of like kind of what Desiree is saying, there are definitely figures like Jill, I feel similar to you here, that really are a central touch point where for folks where I'm a part of a smaller T32. But I think it's been what I've seen from these councils and communities built, being able to have centralized identified experts that more likely than not, they'll have the answer, but if not, they can point in the right direction. So I think that sometimes, we talk about helping new programs or PIs figure it out, but I think that is something that I felt really validated in these groups of, okay, it's not just me that needs to really kind of like starting in this position, learn almost a completely new language and find its parallel on campus. So that's just something I wanted to highlight from my experience of the T32 Council at Davis. And again, Kirsten is just phenomenal. So thank you for all your work.
Thank you, Alex. I didn't see you didn't have your Davis thing on your screen. I didn't know you were on the call.
Yeah.
Marguerite and Kirsten, I just asked you to if you could share your slides in the chat or send them via email or something.
Sure.
That'd be really helpful.
Yeah, I'm happy to send them to you via email.
I tend to look at things like very all or nothing. So I feel like this is like starting this council is like the size of Mount Everest right now. If I start it, where do I start? I guess.
Jill, we started with a charter. We were very, businessy.
But that's a great place. Yeah.
We wrote a charter. And I'd be happy to share our charter. We had an email invitation with the argument about why this group was important and why you should join and what we were going to do. So I can send that along.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. That would be great.
I think because our group was somewhat established, now what I do if I find out there's a PI on campus who's going to be submitting a T32, I send them an email just inviting them to attend our meetings. If the next one's scheduled, I'll send them the Outlook calendar. If not, I'll just let them know that we'll reach out in the next few months to get it scheduled. I think I did send that language to you. It's like an email template that I have.
Okay.
Something that's helpful is the PIs reach out to me when they start working on a new training grant. So I do the same. As soon as they start working with me, I just introduce them to the T32 Council. So that helps.
It's 2:52. Does anybody else have any other questions for the panelists? Continue chatting about this. Take that as a no. Okay, well, our next meeting is in April. Gosh, I don't know exactly when in April. I have to look at the calendar, and I don't have a topic yet for next month, but I'm sure I can come up with something based on the input from you guys. So I'll hang out on the line if anybody else wants to chat or have questions, but otherwise, thank you very much, Rachel, Kirsten, and Marguerite.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kirsten, for representing us.
Thank you, guys.
I'll disseminate the slides as well.
You know, I had an update for you for some other stuff, but if anybody else wants to have any questions about specific for my projects,
About what?
about specific stuff about my projects and about UCSD, maybe how we can start to brainstorm this.
Yeah, I would really like to do this. I just feel like, you know, we've tried to do something with GEPA, you know, and it doesn't, like, we have too much of this